it's Moose. Thank you so much for joining me back here. It's that time of year to reflect on all of my reading this year. I am at 99 books. I am so close to my reading goal of 100. Should finish it, should hit it in the next day or so after I finish the audiobook I'm working on, but that's besides the point. Today we're talking about all of my favorites of 2022 so far. I got a lot of books to go through. I don't have a set number that I'm going to try to hit. You know, I'm not going to do like top 10 books of 2022. I'm just going to do my favorites. Gosh, looking back at these, it's like, wow, I really read this one in 2022. That was so long ago. First up, I have The Maidens by Alex Michael Leeds. This was my first thriller, pretty much ever. I branched out, tried thrillers this year, loved it. This one was so gripping to me. I felt on the edge of my seat the entire time I read it. I read it in like a day. It was so fast. Great. Loved it. Next up, I have The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. Also this year, I branched out into rom-coms. So you might find that a lot of the books on this list are rom-coms, romances. This one I'm putting on my favorites list specifically because it was my first. It was the one that kind of got me in the mood for rom-coms. I read this one, it was like, wow, I love this feeling. I like reading rom-coms. I want to read more. This one made me want to read more. So I consider it one of my favorites. It's, looking back, you know, having read so many this year, it's definitely not the best, but it has like that special place for me. The Hating Game is an enemies to lovers, workplace romance type thing. They've worked together for years. When they first meet each other, he's kind of standoffish. It's definitely Grump Sunshine trope, but he's kind of standoffish, and so she kind of takes it as a personal offense, and they spend their whole working relationship kind of nitpicking at each other and trying to one-up each other. Who doesn't love a good enemies to lovers? Next up, I have Anna Holidays by Christina Lauren. This one is a great Christmas romance, so we're in the Christmas season. This is a appropriate one right now. Loved it. Kind of Groundhog Day type of thing. Our main character is part of a family who meets with other families for the Christmas season. So her family and like two other ones meet at this like cabin out in the woods in the mountains and celebrate Christmas all together. It's one big happy community type thing, and she has secretly fallen in love with one of the boys in the other families and has never told him, and now they're adults, and lo and behold, his family is the one that owns the cabin, and they're going to sell the cabin, so they won't be able to spend Christmas together at this cabin anymore. And on their way home, she's super upset about it. She loves this boy. She won't get to spend time with him anymore. On their way home, something happens. They get in a crash or something like that, and she passes out, and when she wakes up, she's at the beginning of their Christmas holiday again, and so she kind of gets a chance to redo everything and confess her love. It's great. I loved it. This will not be a surprise to probably many of you if you watch my videos. I'm just going to clump them here. The Love Cliches by Emma St. Clair. I did a whole video on these. I love them. I love her. She's my new favorite rom-com author. Her and Sarah Adams. I'll get to Sarah Adams in a second. Love her. Love her. Love her. I've read other things by hers as well. So the Love Cliches are great. The Graham Brothers trilogy is great. There's only 2 so far. She's writing the 3rd one. Royally Rearranged is great. There's a new one coming out. Anything by her really is a favorite of mine. Auto by author. Love her. I told you we would get to Sarah Adams. Let's get to it. My first one by Sarah Adams was The Cheat Sheet, and I listened to it on audiobook. I've listened to all of hers on audiobook, I think. She is hilarious. If you want a rom-com, a romantic comedy author, I think Sarah Adams is a great choice. I audibly laugh out loud whenever I listen to her books. Fantastic. And what I love about them is they're clean romances. I like spice sometimes. Here lately, as I've gotten older, not so much. I kind of get a little tired of it sometimes. So I've really been itching for some clean romances. And I love these. I love her. The Cheat Sheet was great. Basically this one's more of like a younger adult romance. It's not YA. They're not teenagers. They're adults. She owns like a ballet studio type thing. He is a famous football player. Best friends to lovers. They've both loved each other for a while. Neither of them wanted to admit it. That type of thing. Super sweet. Hilarious. Another great one by Sarah Adams that was maybe one of my favorites of the year. It might be my favorite rom-com of the year, just for the feelings that it gave me. The Enemy by Sarah Adams. The male protagonist in this one is fantastic and swoon-worthy. I love the dynamic of these characters. Basically, enemies to lovers. They've always known each other. They went to high school together. Separate ways when they get older, you know, and they're forced to come back together for a wedding. Her best friend is friends with his best friend. No, her best friend is marrying his best friend, and so they're forced to come together for this wedding. Years later, they're adults. She owns a bakery, right? She owns a bakery with this best friend, and he is a popular chef, like a very successful chef. I don't want to spoil it. He's very persistent, but not in like a creepy way, in a good way. It's great. I loved it. I swooned so much. Again, I laughed out loud. She's hilarious. I love her. One of my favorite authors. Can't wait to read more of her in 2023. Next up, I have another series that I'm going to kind of just clump together. We're going to talk about The Bromance Book Club by Lisa K. Adams. Fantastic. Hilarious. These are not clean romances. These have some spice in them. But they're hilarious. I listen to them on audiobook. I love Andrew Iden. He's such a great narrator for male voices. Basically, in this series, I've talked about it a lot on my channel. A group of guys get together, have a book club where they read romance books to learn how to romance their women. They call them the manuals. It's hilarious. It's fantastic. I love the first one. I just finished A Very Merry Bromance, which is the newest one. It just came out like last month. I can't give these enough praise, especially if you listen to the audiobooks. If you're going to read them, I highly recommend the audiobooks because a lot of them are from the male's perspective, and like I say, Andrew Iden just does a great job narrating them. Again, okay, I'm sorry, a lot of these are going to be romances. Next up I have You Deserve Each Other by Sarah Hogel. Again, this one was hilarious. I read this one as an ebook. I did not listen to this one, which is kind of an anomaly this year. A lot of my reading was done through audiobooks, but I read this one as an ebook. I'm trying to describe what kind of trope this would be. It's not enemies to lovers, but it's kind of enemies to lovers. Basically, our main characters are engaged, and they've kind of fallen into a rut where their romance has kind of dwindled, and she is purposely doing things to aggravate him in the hopes that he will break off their engagement, and he's kind of doing the same things. And it's kind of just a miscommunication between the two where they're just not talking out their problems. And I usually hate the miscommunication trope. I think everybody does. But this one is done in a different kind of way where the miscommunication has already happened, and this is the afterwards and how they fix it. I loved it. I thought it was great. Overbearing mother-in-law, again, very persistent. Husband, fiance, whatever. It was great. Laughed out loud. Loved it. Shoot! I don't have my copies of these. I have lent them out to a friend of mine, but Crescent City by Sarah J. Maas. I love these. I was so hesitant to read these, both of them. House of Earth and what is it? House of Earth and House of Earth and Blood, House of Sky and Breath, right? Is that the second one's name? Blown away. I need a minute. Hold on, I'm getting too worked up. I loved these. I was very hesitant at first. They're very chunky and very intimidating, so I kind of put them off for a little bit. Finally read the first one and was kind of not digging it too much because it is different than anything Sarah J. Maas has written before. There's more modern elements to it. They have cell phones and guns and that kind of stuff, which is not typical for Sarah J. Maas fantasy. So it kind of threw me off in the beginning, but now, my favorite Sarah J. Maas series right now. Cannot wait for the next one. Not going to give any spoilers. I feel very strongly about the Sarah J. Maas universe right now. If you have any theories, link them below, but don't put any spoilers. Don't spoil it for people, but I would like to know some more theories. Moving on. Next up, I have some mixed feelings a little bit. The Scholomance first two by Naomi Novik. I have the, Deadly Education, The Last Graduate. Loved these two. Some of my favorites of the year. I read this one and my heart broke, and I was like, So anxious for the new one to come out, which I have up there too. It's the Golden Enclaves. I did a reading vlog on that one, but Golden Enclaves was a little disappointed. That one's not on this video, but I did love these two. So much so that it kind of makes up for the last one a little bit because I loved these. I loved these. I was obsessed. I'll still probably reread them. I read them twice this year, if that gives you any indication. Read them in March, read them again in preparation for the last one. I've talked about these a lot here on my channel, so I don't want to like beat a dead horse, you know. But basically, in this world, wizards, are they wizards? I don't know. People who can do magic are filled with mana, basically. Their magic is fueled by mana, and Maleficaria are these monsters in this world who feed on the mana. And so the Mauls, that they're called, try to eat wizards, right? To get their mana. And as a young wizard is growing up, they produce the most mana and don't know how to handle it. So they're kind of just like this overflowing well that the Mauls are attracted to. And so to protect their children, the people in this world have put them into the Scholomance, which is kind of just a boarding school out in the void that is more difficult for the Mauls to get to. The Mauls can still get there, but it's harder. And the kids are relatively safer there. The only thing is there's no interaction with the outside world. These kids are basically stuck in this school for 4 years, have no idea what's going on outside. The Mauls are still there, so they're kind of just trapped in this prison-like school, trying to learn enough magic to survive. And then when they get to the graduation hall, down at the bottom, they kind of have to fight their way out. All the Mauls kind of cluster in the graduation hall. It's where the portal is for the school. So they kind of shimmy their way in through the wards, end up in the graduation hall, breed throughout the school year, and then at the end of the school year, all of the seniors have to fight their way out to graduate. The concept is amazing to me. I love these. I talk about them a lot on my channel. The last one I want to mention is another rom-com, The Roommate Situation by Katie Bailey. So sweet. Love this one. There's another one in this series that I have on my like TBR. I have it saved to my script. Super sweet. This one basically is a best friend's brother's best friend romance. She goes through a breakup, moves in with her brother, doesn't know that her brother has a roommate. Her brother is out of town on a work trip. And so she shows up to her brother's house like, hey, I'm here to live with you. And her brother has a roommate. One of those type of things, but it was super cute. Loved it. Sweet, funny, would recommend. So there we go. A lot of rom-coms on this list, but that is a lot of what my reading was this year. Looking at this year, I want to read more fantasy next year. Fantasy has always been my favorite. I didn't read enough of it this year, so it's on my list. But there we go. Those are my favorites of 2022. Again, there might be one or two more that might sniggle their way in. Is sniggle even a word? Might wiggle their way in. By the end of the year, we have a couple weeks left, but as of right now, here are my favorites. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, be sure to subscribe down below and leave a comment. You guys are awesome. I'm so thankful for you. I'm so blessed to have you. And we'll be back here next time, guys. See ya!